So this was February 2, I think. I was able to explain before the Congress the intricate web of irregularities and cover-up in a financial transaction involving military brass. And the other kind of irregularities that were included in the audit. And then on February 2, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the retired Armed Forces of the Philippines, the previous generals were called in the Congress and they were all asked, what can you say about the send of money? And then, of course, they all denied receiving such. But the continued hearing actually gave some light that they're actually lying, okay? Now this is sometime on February 4, 2011, when I was tempted to quit from being a witness, from being a resource person in terms of the investigation of the Senate in the participation of the auditors in the irregularities of the Commission on Audit. Because there's so much pain that I have inflicted among the institution, and I'm almost convinced that, you know, I have wrecked the institution so much. And I was also hurt by the accusations of some of the people I work with while I was still with the Commission on Audit. But of course, I readily gained up my confidence, and I said I'll appear again, if only for those who believe that I'm telling the truth. And out of that expose, I got 3 pan-page accounts, okay? One with 7,500 members, the other with 5,000, the others with 3,500. I'm going back to the Philippines because on May 8th, I'm meeting all the members of the We Support You, Heidi Mendoza. So I have to bought lots of chocolates for them, okay? And then on February 8th, I continued to detail the misuse of the AFP funds, wherein I discussed the utilization of the modernization funds. It was really a bit disheartening to find out that, you know, we're budgeting a lot of money for the modernization of our equipment, but I found out in my audit that more than 50% of the releases were used for the purchase of office supplies. That's why in Washington I mentioned something like the AFP incurred $800 million to buy bond papers. You know, many of you may question why the need for bond papers. Well, actually this is indicative of their long denied but oftenly practiced the act of conversion. So it's just like if you have a budgetary allocation of 100 million, they would approach the supplier. The supplier would readily took out 20% of that and give the 80% in cash. And then he or she will allow the use of his or her documents, including the receipts, and then a check will be paid, and then of course he will get the 100 million back, right? So this is what we call conversion. That's why there are lots of bond papers that are purchased in order to buy houses in the US, you know, fund a lot of travels of the wives, bought a lot of jewelry. I was able to partake with them. Just joking. Okay, and then come on, forget those. I think sometime on February 8th, it was then that the General Reyes committed suicide. This is really a long slide. So this is the picture of the auditor receiving 2%.
Who committed suicide?
The general. Let me fast forward this slide, okay? Okay. So, sorry. So the ex-Armed Forces of the Philippines Chief of Staff committed suicide. So, and former Defense Secretary died on Tuesday morning. It was difficult because on that morning I was already in Congress, and we were supposed to start the hearing, which will actually involve a confrontation between me and the chairman of the Commission on Audit. Because remember, I explained in the hearing that he submitted a letter denying the existence of the audit report and claiming that I was not mandated to audit. So the congressman believed that it is better for us to be invited both so that we can shed light into the matter. So on that morning, we received the news that Angelo Reyes committed suicide. And it was worrisome for my family because, you know, in the Philippines, you do not necessarily believe the news, right? So everybody's thinking, oh, maybe he was shot. So a lot of my friends went out to fetch my children, bring them to the safe house because they thought that he was shot, and everybody was thinking that the next one will be, you know, my family. And then at the level of the Congress, there's also a division of the House. There's a big part of the House who wanted to stop entirely the investigation because they said, you know, it is not, it is against our culture to continue this investigation while someone has committed suicide already. We have to give respect to those who died. Anyway, he was also a former officer of the Philippines, right? And there's also a campaign to make him a hero because, you know, he sacrificed by killing himself so he can forever remain quiet and save the institution from so much embarrassment. And there was even some attempt, I think, to blame us, me and Rabusa, because had it not been for the whistleblowers, he would have been alive, right? And I think in my private reflection, I said something like, you know, we're trying very hard to remain alive, if only to tell our truth. But however, he chose to kill himself so as to keep himself silent and not to perhaps to spare his family and the institution from all this kind of investigation. So anyway, the division of the House led to majority opting to continue the investigation. So the Congress hearing continues its investigation, and then it ended with a conclusion that the plea bargain agreement should be withdrawn by the Office of the Ombudsman. But you know, it was very sad. They ended the session. They went into recess, but the Office of the Ombudsman never withdrew the plea bargain agreement. Okay? At the level of the Senate, there were several discussions. Some of the hearing focused on the involvement of the generals into the irregularities and anomalies in the armed forces of the Philippines. Part of the hearing focused on the validity of the plea bargain agreement. And again, after much debate and after much heated discussion, there is again a recommendation to pull out the plea bargain. But again, the Ombudsman refused to withdraw the plea bargain that they have entered into with the general. And as you may be aware of, the general is still free in my country, right? So he's waiting for me.